told through the stories of today's leaders in finance, tech, real estate, culture, and sustainability. This is Planet Gold with your host, Enzo di Taranto.
Welcome to this new edition of Planet Gold, my eco podcast to reinvent the global climate agenda at the Horizon 2030. Today is my great honor and privilege to speak with Dr. Ash Pachauri, who, in addition to be a very good friend, is the CEO, founder, president, and leader of the global movement POP, which stands for Protect Our Planet, which is one of the largest platforms to engage world populations, in particular the youth, on different sustainability topics, spanning from health to digitalization to protection of the environment, and of course to education. So Dr. Ash, it's again my pleasure and honor to host you on this Planet Gold platform. I guess you are connecting today from New York City. Is that correct?
Indeed, my precious brother and dear friend and heart of the pop family. I just want to say, first off, thank you very much for this incredible opportunity to be together with you. Any opportunity we have to be together is really quite such a great blessing. And of course, to say Planet Gold is a true reflection of who you are and where you come from and everything you believe in. So I'm truly honored to be with you, and indeed, I am currently in New York City, and I'm thrilled to be here with you and all your incredible viewers. And I hope we're going to be able to have a conversation which will add much to everybody's life and everything they do.
Exactly. And
Indeed,
this is actually the
thank you.
purpose to share your views, your vision of the planet, your experience, your life story, again, spanning from music to education to world leadership. That will be very interesting for our audience to learn about your life trajectory. As you mentioned that, we have had a number of occasions to meet together also in person. I remember very with a warm heart the fact that we met at the United Nations headquarters a few years ago, where I moderated a conference within the platform of Youth for Human Rights International, and you performed greatly in that occasion. And from that point on, we have developed, we have been developing actually a very deep friendship and a professional partnership. We co-produced an activation in Dubai during the COP28. As you remember, we had the privilege, thanks to your connections, to meet also with Sultan Al Jaber, the president of COP28 at that time, and other world leaders that support the pop movement. And so let me start with this actually, the onset of pop, how you envisioned this world movement, and what pop stands for.
Well, thank you so much. And yes, indeed, we are on this journey together. And what greater blessing could one ask for? And you're, as I mentioned, and it comes from the heart, very much the heart of the pop family. And I'd love to share a little more about how the pop movement came about. So, It was my father who was working with the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change as chairman for 13 years and as vice chairman for 5 years before that. So this was 2 decades nearly of work with global governments. And this was a point actually when climate change as a term or understanding of what climate change, leave alone the science of it, was really quite unknown. So there was a huge movement even within the IPCC, building up the science and the credibility, the understanding of what climate change was. However, 2 decades later, he was very convinced that the only way we were going to be able to make the change that we need to make, especially given the very small and rapidly, even more rapidly shrinking window now that lies before us, is to create a movement of young people. Now, there was a reason for focusing on youth. And I will share a little more about how, and you are aware, but for just to underscore that while the pop movement is focused on mobilizing the 1.8 billion youth of the world to take knowledge inspired action on the issue of climate change, we are very intergenerational. Now, why did we focus on young people? The reason for focusing on youth is one, the youth have the most to bear in terms of the brunt of climate change. Of course, the youth have also contributed the least to it. Having said that, youth are also least set in their ways, and we know, my brother, that it is going to really take a change in behavior, a change in values, a change in our mindsets, in the choices we make, irrespective of what field of work we may adopt, where we live, it's going to take these changes. And young people are least set in their ways. So they are way more capable of making the change. And also, young people have the ability to influence change. So, if they're in school with their teachers or at home with their parents, young people are telling their parents, why are we using this plastic? And we know that when we are at a point in our lives where demand changes, supply will have to change. But as long as we're demanding all this stuff, we're going to continue to have the supply coming. And of course, there's corporate interests in, continuing that. So it's very important that, and there are ways of being actually, I just want to say businesses can be very profitable while being clean and green. We just need to change our mindsets to consider that our lives and our very existence is dependent upon the health of the planet. Having lived, for most of us who are here, we've lived through a pandemic, and we know that the the worst is yet to come if we don't start to make those changes like yesterday. So that window of opportunity is very rapidly closing in front of us. And so the idea behind the pop movement is to mobilize the 1.8 billion youth of the world, and that's where the movement comes in. And of course, we are focused on youth. So pop was a bit of a spin on the name, to be popular, to be, also very current in being pop and so on. So it was a bit of a spin on the word on the name, but as you mentioned, pop stands for protect our planet. And really, it's about being a family. And we must remember in ancient Sanskrit, it's called Vasudeva Kutumbakam, which means the universe is one family. And the truth is that one little butterfly fluttered somewhere is going to have an impact and a ripple effect in another corner of the world. So we must understand we are so connected. And that's where the centrality of the youth movement connects with intergenerational approaches. So our sister organization, as you're aware, is called the World Sustainable Development Forum. And this was an organization that actually was set up at about the same time as the pop movement, a little bit later, which brings together global leaders from policy to heads of state to science to business to education from around the world. And so these are adults, not necessarily youth, but they're also leaders of today, as youth are leaders of today and tomorrow. And the two organizations, the short form for World Sustainable Development Forum is, it's a mouthful, is called WSDF. And the pop movement are very much sister organizations. So, for example, we've had multiple pop festivals, and I'm sure I'll talk more about them later. But a pop festival is this gathering where young people come together with global leaders through the WSDF, and we have people from ages 5 to 95, literally, and they're sitting at the same table. but there's so much to learn from each other. And can we respect that? And so we try and personify this, and we do it with all, with all sincerity and integrity. And there's much to learn from that coming together, and that's where young people are inspired and continue to inspire, as do those with experience. So this is really where it was. Now, we were born, the pop movement was born on Earth Day 2016. So believe it or not, we're going to hit our 10-year
Yes.
mark
Nice.
in another few months. We're very blessed, very grateful, and continue to learn from the partners we have. We are very collaborative. The whole idea is that we're not in competition with anybody. It's about collaborating, it's about coming together. So our partnerships are key. And the approaches that we use are participatory. It's never about going into, I don't know, Zimbabwe or, Guatemala or another part on the planet, wherever that may be in the Pacific or elsewhere, to tell people what to do. The idea is really to build the capacities, and that's where you've played a very central role. And I have to say it, I can't resist, because you've guided us very mindfully in building courses and programs. We have now, and you'll be proud, my dearest brother, unified the whole experience of orienting young people and also those with experience to the pop movement through courses. We have multitude hours and hours of courses through what we call the Pop Academy. And the Pop Academy is available. So everybody who joins the pop movement as a first step joins the Pop Academy. And we have courses which actually Dad had developed, which never saw the light of day, but now are available literally in the exact format that he developed them on climate change. We have courses on oceans, we have courses on climate and health, we have climate and gender. We even have values are very central to who we are. So we have courses on soft skills and leadership development, because we must understand at the end of the day, not everybody's going to spend their life necessarily leading quote unquote climate initiatives, but whatever they choose to do, they will come in with a mindset where they care for the planet and they care for each other in everything they do, irrespective of what field they adopt. And that is very central. And how can we be one in those values, and also the ethos, the principles, and let love and light be a driving force? I think that's really where there have been some departures in the world that we live in today. And I think there's a lot of hope, there's a lot of scope, and yeah, we can
Yes.
do it. We can definitely
Absolutely.
do it.
Totally,
So
totally.
thank you for allowing us to, for being part of the journey with us.
Of course, of course. I mean, we need to, support and, as you say, collaborate with all possible platforms, because this climate crisis is a multidimensional challenge that requires multidimensional responses, and nobody has the solution in isolation. You mentioned to the concept of interconnectedness of everything, to the butterfly effect that Secretary General Kofi Annan mentioned when receiving the Nobel Peace Prize in Oslo. But this is an issue that I elaborate further in my upcoming book, Planetology. I've been articulating this new science that approaches the planet through our physical bodies. So I think that we have to de-intellectualize, if I can use this term, the concept of climate, and experiencing it through our sensory bodies. because the fact that we are breathing air, we are eating food, we are drinking water, it's all coming from the planet. It all comes into our body, and we have lost consciousness of this ancestral primitive connection that we have ourselves with what we call planet, but we are just part of it. You see, and so that is a conversation that we can keep developing moving forward. But if you allow me, dear Dr. Ash and dear friend, you mentioned two very important concepts that I would like to elaborate a little bit further upon. The first, you mentioned, and forgive me if in my introduction I didn't mention that, but you rightly pointed out that the pop movement is targeting primarily the almost 2 billion young people all over the world. And certainly we need to engage them to build a better world and a better future, but also the importance of engaging with the policymakers, with the upstream, the top of the social pyramid. And I know, well, you didn't mention that, but I do it now, that a number of so-called celebrities, I mean, very influential people, have been supporting the pop movement during the last decade, starting from Vice President Al Gore, who, together with your father, received the Nobel Award, and going to Secretary Kerry, I mean, former U.S. Secretary of State Kerry, former California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger. I think that former SG United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, Arnold, as I mentioned, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Leonardo DiCaprio, and many others, of these A-list voices that we need to engage. So, as you know, I've been, fostering this concept of celebrity diplomacy because I'm convinced that by engaging these top voices, we can spread our message massively and swiftly, much more than with any other mean. So I would like that you briefly share with us what has been your experience in engaging so-called celebrities or in using this approach of celebrity diplomacy, and what would be the next steps in this endeavor for the pop movement.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for providing a little bit of a backdrop on, where the WSDF, as I mentioned, stands in terms of, a number of global leaders, and we feel exceedingly blessed. And in a way, I want to say that, the pop movement really belongs to them. So we are. I just want to say, my dearest Enzo, that we do keep them informed on a constant basis on developments. We have a number of platforms through, for example, our Pop Festival, which is our annual flagship event. We've hosted pop festivals around the world, where young people come together with global leaders. We've had the good fortune of very humbly welcoming Nobel Peace laureates, as well as heads of states, Secretary Kerry, His Excellency Ban Ki-moon, several others, to these platforms where we call it a festival because festival is about hope, and it's about coming together, and it's about celebration, which is really where I think a lot of our action needs to be centered. And in this, like I said, we have people from ages 9 to 99, 5 to 95, literally, and everything in between. And I think there's just so much our experience has taught us where these leaders are now in touch with young people because they're speaking at the same platform. So the way that my father had envisaged this, and we worked on various WSDF global events where we've had literally 7,000 people, up to 200, heads of states and leaders from around the world, and every panel has somebody from WSDF as one of our patrons or heads of states and advisors to a young person from the pop movement. And every one of these platforms has both because there's so much to bring to the fore if we come together. And I think that our lesson in this is that we need much more of this. I have seen personally how these leaders are in touch with our young people, and they've got an ear on the ground as a consequence. Not to say that they don't otherwise, but sometimes just the realm at which, like you pointed out, they are functioning, there's a distance that's created as a consequence of the demands on their time and so on and so forth. But there's such proximity as a consequence of this, and not to mention that is hugely inspiring to young people. A young person just needs one, just a look or a glance or a word or, just a sentiment of encouragement, and they can spiral to a whole other level of elevation. And this is the kind of inspiration we need. And this is the best part of that experience that we have in this world. And we feel blessed that it's so forthcoming through the space that's been created through WSDF and the pop movement and the collective space. And I think collective is a very key word here. So, what do we want to do with this? The way that I see this is that we need to do much more of this much faster. How
Yeah.
do we scale this? How do we make this happen in a manner that we can truly make that connection at this level? Because there's so much to share here, but unless we make a connection here,
Yes.
how are we going to start talking to each other? How do we talk the same language? We can bypass all language barriers, we can bypass all geographic barriers if there's a connection here. And I know from my very little minuscule experience that it is possible. I've seen it.
Yes.
So my hope is that we are going to be able to scale this and scale it at the rate at which we need to do it, and even faster.
Yes.
Our time is truly of the essence, and we've got some of the most incredible leaders at every level, whether they're got ages in single digits or double digits or whatever. We have incredible leaders here, and all of us just need to really connect at a point where it truly matters, so we can come together to do this. And we do continue to receive support, endorsement, messages, and you talked about courses. They are also contributing to courses.
Funding,
There's
yeah,
so
and the
much that's
funding as
happening.
well. Let's
Pardon
remember
me?
the funding as well. I mean,
Indeed.
we,
Indeed.
we need more funding to scale up
Yeah.
these activities. And I know that the members of this upstream circle that the POP counts on have been also contributing greatly. But let me jump on this particular point, dear Dr. Ash, because you know well that I use all global media stages possible as you do to sensitize and engage celebrities and world leaders on the climate agenda. Just this year, as I do most years since now a decade as well, I activate the climate agenda during the Cannes Film Festival, the Venice Film Festival. This year, the first time during the Zurich Film Festival, and so I see that first of all, young people have lost references um, in politics, in public education. Even the concept of families have been, let's say, disintegrating in many ways. So young people have been losing these social references, and looking at these global influencers, artists, musicians, athletes, actors and actresses as role models. And obviously, there are good role models and bad role models, and we filter them and we try to engage the good ones, right? But I see that young people are very attracted by them, are inspired by them, and on the other hand, this global voices also look for more compelling causes to support, because the truth is, during the last, let's say, 20 years, the so-called charity philanthropy industry was gravitating around other children, or in some cases like George Clooney or Giorgio Armani, who unfortunately passed away just recently, Angelina Jolie. They have also been supporting causes like refugees. Anyway, these are traditional things, but also this industry is evolving. And I think that the planet as an entity is becoming more and more attractive for these global voices to being engaged in. So I'm very positive in the work that we are doing, and we are blessed, you and me, to in a way lead the way, and keep doing that together in the next years and decades. But Ash, let me go now also to another point that you mentioned at the beginning of this conversation that for me, but for everybody is pivotal as well, which is the planet as business. So let me make my point, and then I would like to hear your views on this. So for many reasons, and especially in the United States, but also in Europe, I should say, the climate movement has been highly politicized, has become more an ideological battle than a real, but quest, I should say. And so nowadays, especially in certain right wing or Republican or high end or rich circles of people, the climate movement is often seen as something naive, as something hippie, or not really anchored to the reality. And I think this is wrong. I think that as we are doing, we have to change this narrative and make sure that the battle for the climate is a human. It really touches the survival of the human species, more than a certain group of people. We have to de-ideologizing, if I can say that, depoliticizing, and remove all these propaganda around the fact that climate change, which a term that I don't like to use, but it's more Democrat than Republican, or it's more left than right, and so on. So the entry point for this, as I told you, in my planetology vision, is twofold. The new entry points must be the body, which means that by protecting the planet, we protect our health, our own health, meaning, we can live longer and better. It's a very survival, approach, but it's a true one. And it's very attractive to everybody. So if we say to everybody, okay, we will let you live better and longer, everybody will jump on that. How to do it? Just, live more naturally. You see, drink better water, breathe better air, eat better food. And it's easy. It's very easy, actually. So the body is one entry point. The other one is business, which means if we promote this narrative that by protecting the planet, you become richer, I mean, monetarily richer. Why? Because the new economy, it's a new multi-trillion economy that is all green and blue. spanning from clean energy to waste recycling to wealth and health and wellness industries, cosmetics, beauty, fashion, agriculture. So all the world economy is moving towards sustainability. And those entrepreneurs and those investors who now position themselves in this new economic dynamics, they will become richer for the economic law of the first entrepreneur. So when you position yourself into a certain market, you make more money before others come in. So these are the two key points. Now, the health side, you are an expert, but I know that this will deserve a different, conversation, a much longer and broader, and I will be happy to do that. Maybe another episode on the relation between health and planet, and you are certainly a top voice together with your mother and all family in this area. But let me focus nowadays, right now on the planet as business, especially because we need to give to the young people job opportunities and economic opportunities. So that's our responsibility. So how do you see this, and how do you see the pop movement positioning itself in providing practical business solutions to the youth?
Thank you so much. This is you touched on so many absolutely extraordinary points. And I think your starting point, and yes, I'll be honored to speak with you in more depth and detail at any point that you call on me on the issue of climate and health. But I think you underscored the fundamental, the underlying reality, which is that, the issue of climate change is in fact a public health issue and our own health and existence. So it's an existential issue as far as we're concerned, because our own existence is dependent upon a healthy planet. So we live healthy as long as we leave the planet to be healthy. And you're absolutely, on the mark. You also brought up the issue of the blue and the green, and as they say, her deepness, Dr. Sylvia Earle says, no blue, no green, and that's the truth of it. I mean, 75% of our planet is
Water.
water.
Yeah.
The air that we breathe comes from that water, and we cannot possibly fathom being healthy unless we keep our marine ecosystems clean and pristine. And there's ways to do it. And I think you brought up the most important point, which is the economics. Because at the end of the day, the irony for everybody out there, especially all the young people, but even those who may be well into, being adults, who are listening in, the truth of the matter is we have the solutions. We do have technologies. These technologies are in fact not only clean, but given an opportunity, if we begin to scale them, we have all of the possibilities to be viable and profitable at every level. The truth is we do have solutions. The question is if we are willing to get out of same old, and make those changes. And this is where I think a lot of education really does, and even the conversation we are having is so important. I hope that it can be amplified at all kinds of levels. My brother Enzo, you have been working with a range of different stakeholders, and we do need to be willing to talk to all. It cannot be just talking to, kids in school. They are very important, but there are also many others who need to be able to understand that we do in fact have solutions, we have the technologies, we have the innovation, and they're available. If we begin to implement them, in fact, they are way more viable and profitable in today's world. And we've seen that whether you look at electric vehicles, you look at solar technology, you look at a lot of the clean technologies that are available. Of course, we can get into a much longer conversation about AI, which it comes with all kinds of opportunities, and at the same time, there's all kinds of things, at least in terms of carbon emissions, that we do need to be mindful of. And like with any new technology, I mean, AI is now becoming very prolific. We do need to be able to weigh out what the pros and cons are. We found this whether we talk about solar technology and the technology that's the materials that are used in developing that technology, and what the implications are for the planet and the people thereafter. So I think the most important thing is how can we be mindful, whether it's the development of LLMs or large language models or AI. What are the carbon emissions in training those AI models? What are the implications? If we can only understand that there's much more to it than looking at just the bottom line, and the bottom line actually constitutes many more things, including our own ability to survive, the prevalence of a lot of those technologies and solutions, and the implementations of those solutions in the most mindful and clean, blue and green ways. And I just want to say that we're at a point where we know for a fact that we do have solutions. It's a matter of understanding that the economics in entirety would be in our favor if we're willing to make some of those transitions. And we know that from experience, that in fact we can do that. The only thing is we're going to have to move away from some of the same old
Paradigms.
ways that we are so used to now.
Yes.
And you talked about the issue of plastics. I just want to say, at the end of the day, just for understanding what the implications when we talk about existential, what does it really mean? Because at the end of the day, in any single bite, spoonful of food that we consume as part of breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or anything in between, we are consuming 150 to 200 pieces of microplastic. What are the implications of this? What does it mean for human health? What does it mean for a number of diseases we know are becoming highly prevalent? Cancers are increasing manifold. A number of hormonal changes are taking place, and not to mention the air pollution, which we know scientifically now today has been published in peer-reviewed scientific journals of top tier nature, such as Nature, that in fact air pollution is causing cognitive impairment in people at very, very early years. We are seeing Alzheimer's, we're seeing all kinds of other, dementia, we're seeing all kinds of cognitive impairment. But we must understand that our own existence is dependent upon making changes. Do we have an opportunity to do that? And is it economically viable? Yes, yes, and yes. We still can do it. And we have the knowledge, we have the technologies, we have the innovations. We should be willing to make the change, and make the change like yesterday. And it is going to be what is going to determine our own existence. Because believe me, I just want to point out that, we talked about climate change and public health, and it being a public health emergency. We've lived through a pandemic. And I just want to say that if we don't tackle this issue, the pandemic will be feeble and a nothingness in comparison to what the implications of emissions of gases will be, and the warming of the planet as a consequence. So we haven't even seen the smallest elements
Yes.
of what is possible in terms of the desecration we are causing to this planet and
Yes.
other species that our own existence is dependent upon. So, in case you think, oh, I don't live near the ocean and the life of fish, I mean, do we know that every hour 11,000 sharks are killed? Every single hour. And this is a very conservative estimate, by the way. And what for? Well, they get caught in nets. They get, caught for shark fin. They dump them living in the ocean at numerous occasions. In many cases, they're dead. But I just want to say that our lives are dependent upon every form of marine life out there. Because if there's no marine life, there are going to be dead zones in the ocean. The dead zones in the ocean, there's no oxygen. If there's no oxygen, we're not going to survive. So
Yes.
it's really, really important to understand this.
Yes, absolutely. No, obviously, there is no way to disagree with what you said. And I would like to add that again, with the aim of reinventing and upgrading the narrative around the global climate agenda, it's time now to don't argue anymore about the problem. Everybody can see the problem. We didn't mention natural disasters, but you mentioned global warming, and from the Philippines to the Democratic Republic of Congo, all the world population is suffering from, not mentioning to the small islands that are, or even the coastlines of Florida that are this shrinking. So I think that there is no way to disagree with that. Now we have to focus on solutions. And in this respect, I think that you mentioned education, and we have to again change the educational paradigm from being an intellectual activity to being a business-oriented activity. Because if we provide young, especially young people, but also investors and the finance world, the bankers, the hedge funds of this world, if we provide them solutions that make money, and I want to be very very basic, making money, cash flow. If we provide these solutions that are both protective of the planet and money making, it's done. I mean, nobody will argue or nobody will oppose or adverse in any way. We are at new stage of human comprehension of this crisis, and there is no way, even in the United States, the new Trump administration that has been a little bit, in the speech, a little bit adverse, for the reasons I mentioned earlier, because of the politicization of the concept of climate change that we should not even use anymore. But President Trump, the first two domestic trips that he was forced to do were one in, I think, North Carolina for a major flooding, and the second one in California for major wildfires. So there is no way to argue about that. So we have to now develop these two entry points that are, as you say, climate has health and climate as business. And with these two new verticals, we can easily and swiftly change the narrative and move towards solutions that are, as I said, that foster both longevity and prosperity. And I think this is a new phase of our work, and I will, always advocate for moving in that direction. But my dear Dr. Ash, my dear friend, I would love to continue these conversations for days. First of all, because it's very interesting hearing your viewpoints and the work that you do. I mean, the practical work that you do. It's not intellectual, as I said earlier. But now I would like to, moving towards the end of our today's conversation by making you a question that I make to all my guests on the Planet God platform, which is the following. Imagine to have a magic wand, and you would have no limitation in terms of financial resources, human resources, technological resources. You could do whatever you think that would be necessary to move the global climate agenda to the next level. What would you do?
Well, thank you. That's such an extraordinary question. And I certainly want to say that I would wish, as we've talked about during the course of this conversation, to really do more of what we're doing and scale it rapidly. I think that that's really what I believe is the need of the hour. You've underscored rightly so. If we switch from a business as usual kind of approach, we find that we can be very, very, very lucrative, changing our ways, looking at how these technologies that offer us such great promise not only offer us a promise in terms of profitability, but also in terms of the health of the planet and all its beautiful inhabitants. And if we could only expand that reach and understanding to really embrace it in terms of action, which is really what we stand for. It's that education and the inspiration of that learning into action. If we can scale that, there's no turning back. And I do still come from a place where there's a lot of hope because I know there's goodness. And it's absolutely magnified and personified in this conversation that you're hosting. And I know you're hosting so many of them. And thank you for doing it. You're doing it because you truly believe, because you also have that vision and conviction that we can amplify this message. And truly, today's conversation is a complete, personification of exactly this. There's goodness out there and there's knowledge out there that we can amplify it and that we can come together to make this difference. We need to do it soon. So my wish for that the magic wand being waved to help scale exactly this. And thank you. And I want to convey my deepest gratitude because I honestly mean it. We are because you are. You have played a pivotal role and continue to every single day in our lives. We have been able to reach many more young people. We've been able to organize the education through books and publications, through the Pop Academy, through our events, through incredible conversations like the one we're having right now. And so I think there's, this hope is living. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank
No,
you
thank
very,
you.
very
Thank
much.
you for your leadership, Dr. Ash, for the work you do with the pop movement and with the WSDF. I think that scaling up is a strategic keyword for everything we do. As I said, our stage is the planet, and our audience is humanity. You see, and this is, our ambition. We cannot be more ambitious than that. We need the resources to implement this vision. And my concept of planet gold is exactly what you say, that the planet is not a problem, but is an opportunity to become both more longeve and richer, which is, the primitive instinct of every human being to, live better and longer for himself, herself, or their families and communities. Unfortunately, I feel that politicians, and this is another issue that I elaborate in my planetology book, we need to reconstruct the political leadership, because the one we have now, and I explicitly say that, starting from the United Nations, that has lost its leverage and its leadership because it's such boring and as you say, business as usual thing that nobody really understand what they are doing. And that's why, I'm out of it from that platform, despite I've been, grateful for the opportunity, high, and we have had working with the United Nations, but we need to re-engineer the whole global political system so that we move to the next level. And thank you for what you do. I will always support you, your family, and your movement in this quest. And once again, thank you for being today and sharing your vision and your work with the Planet Gold audience. I look forward to keeping our friendship and collaboration for many decades ahead, and we'll speak soon.
Thank you so much.
My
Thank you very
pleasure.
much. I greatly look forward to it.
Thank you, Dr. Rana.
Gratitude for your leadership. Thank you, my brother.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Bye bye. Thank you, my brother.